How's it going, guys? I'm Matt Torx. Now, a couple months ago, when I decided to play every game released in the Fallout series and rank them all in one big tier list, there was one game that I left out, Fallout 4 VR. The reason that I couldn't cover it was pretty simple. I didn't own a VR-capable PC. So there was no feasible way for me to play the game. But since then, I've upgraded my setup and can now explore the world of PC VR. So today, in order to fix my tier list and truly play every Fallout game ever released, I'm going to play Fallout 4 VR for the first time, as I document my experience in the Commonwealth, while forming my own opinions and perspective, all in an attempt to figure out where exactly this VR port fits into the Fallout series, and if you should even play it in the first place.
So let's just jump into it.
After tinkering with the game a little bit, because this game is not the most stable at times, I start things off by being stuck in the mirror and staring at my character. But since nothing in this port really has collision, I can just turn around and look outside at Sanctuary Hills a little early. And it's while doing this that I noticed something that shook me to my core. Sitting at my side, where my hands would usually be, is a pair of Quest controllers. That's right, instead of Fallout 4 having the usual floating hands or no hands at all like some other VR titles, you get to see your actual controllers. Now, I don't know about you, but one of my personal favorite parts about VR games is how immersive they can feel. My personal favorite, The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners, is so immersive that it scares the absolute shit out of me sometimes. But there's nothing that manages to break my immersion more than seeing my damn VR controllers at every single moment I'm not holding a weapon. Now, there's no custom character creation in this version, as instead you just pick from a list of pre-made character templates for both Nate and Nora, which I guess doesn't really matter since you're never going to see the character you pick at any point. So I just decided to go with this homeless Thor-looking skin and begin everybody's least favorite opening sequence. I mess with my surroundings to pass the time until the Vault-Tec salesman shows up, and when he finally comes knocking on my door, I decide to go with a pretty standard build, with high endurance and intelligence for some stamina and XP gains. I have absolutely no idea why, but for my name I decided to go with Gale, not my son, spelt like this. I keep fucking around for a bit until the door opens and I have to run to the vault. Sprinting in this is honestly pretty jarring, since you go from normal pace to dashing forward at turbo speeds without any sort of in-between speed. But it's alright, because in this perfectly balanced experience, you get to see once-in-a-lifetime sights. Like a nuclear bomb detonating in your neighborhood, or watching your pixelated wife get shot in the head through the world's most high-tech ice bath. But apart from being in VR, escaping the opening vault isn't actually that different this time around. I run around for a bit, grab a gun, and kill a couple rad roaches. My hijinks take me to the usual vault control, containing the one and only cryolator, been so notorious that exploits have been made just to obtain this weapon early, since it usually requires a master-level hacking or lockpicking skill. But if you remember from a bit earlier in the video, I mentioned that this port doesn't really have any collision on most walls and objects, beyond what was originally in the regular Fallout 4. Which leads me to my favorite part of my entire playthrough, and one of the funniest things I've ever seen in a Bethesda title. If you walk up to the case in which the cryolator is stored, you can just reach your hand through the glass and grab the weapon. That's it. That's all it takes. No grinding out levels, no master lockpicking or dog meat necessary. Just phase your non-existent hand through the glass and voila, you now have the cryolator. Now look, I understand that from a business standpoint, it's way easier to just add a VR camera and controls to an existing game than to update mechanics or add all of these new features like collision or gun physics or arms. But I really feel like it can't be that hard to prevent something like this from happening. Like putting an invisible barrier or only making the item available once the case is opened. But I guess if the game isn't going to bother to consider these types of things, I might as well use them to my advantage. So I took that cryolator, I grabbed dog meat, and I absolutely ran a train through every last one of those raiders in Concord. Because having this weapon 5 minutes out of the vault is too much power for any mortal man. Thanks to the museum didn't go too much better for the raiders, as I now had a laser musket to go along with my ice thrower. And at this point, you might as well have called me Soldier Boy, because I was cranking that all throughout the place. Once I got to Preston, I could tell that he was sizing me up, just waiting to let me know that another settlement needed my help. But for now, he had to settle with telling me where a suit of power armor was, so I could help out his ragtag team of junkies and a computer science major. Getting on to the power armor, all that really changes is that my HUD is a new color and I'm slightly taller. The minigun, on the other hand, is yet another broken weapon that I can use for my advantage. In the base game, the minigun gets a little bit of balance by having a higher recoil and being generally harder to aim. But recoil isn't a thing in this version, so when the death claw spawns, I just have to point in its direction and sweet spinning death sprays out of my weightless floating minigun. I don't have time to stick around and continue to help the Minutemen, because I'd much rather abuse my power and steal stuff instead. Like going to the Wolfgang-Trudy confrontation, killing Wolfgang, selling all my stuff to Trudy, then getting rid of her son, and robbing them for all that they got. Now, like any good Fallout 4 playthrough, my next objective is to run to Diamond City and communicate with some of the locals. And it's on my way to Diamond City that I found the most confusing part of this entire experience. Now, up until now, I had gotten pretty used to the idea that there would be nothing in this game that would really take advantage of motion controls, or any of the immersive features that virtual reality has to offer. The most unique part of this was that I could look around freely, and my actions were split into 2 controllers instead of 1. So imagine my surprise when I accidentally walked through some water and got a little pop-up telling me how to swim. That's right. In order to swim, you have to mimic wading your hands through water and pulling yourself across it. I'm honestly convinced that whoever was in charge of this project was the world's greatest troll and wanted to fuck with as many people as possible. Because I can't think of any other reason that someone would look at a game like Fallout 4 and say, you know what I would love to do if I could be immersed into the wastelands and use my own body as a controller? Go for a fucking swim. Something that in the regular game, I have only ever done to find chests or get to a destination slightly faster. Like somebody decided to take the time to code this into the game, but couldn't bother to stop people from phasing their hands through a glass case in the opening vault. I don't understand the priorities of the dev team behind this, and quite frankly, that scares me. I continue my journey towards Diamond City, convince Piper to help me get into the town, and make sure to sell all of the stuff that I've looted along the way, which takes a little longer than usual since the controls for navigating menus confuse me. In order to progress the story, I had to start Unlikely Valentine and head over to the Park Street station. But before that, I had to do Diamond City Blues. Now, for those who don't know, upon completing this quest, you can get rewarded with up to 240 chems, which can either be sold for massive profits or ingested to evolve oneself to the status of Florida Man. Regardless, both options are way too overpowered, since I did this quest at level 4 and am now set for most of the game. Even though the Triggermen did their best to stop me from saving Nick, they were no match for the drugged-up psychopath with a Mr. Freeze gun that was charging towards their hideout at an alarming rate. And whether it was Skinny Malone or some random dude, nobody even had a chance at stopping my perfectly balanced character. But this, unfortunately, is where our journey ends for the moment. So now, I have to transition things into my final thoughts. If it wasn't exactly obvious from my commentary throughout this video, this isn't exactly a very polished project. Far from it, actually. Now, even though this is a staple of most Bethesda titles, and is often a part of what makes them so memorable and beloved, but while the jank can be charming in flat 2D titles, and something like virtual reality, it just leads to confusion and immersion-breaking mechanics. Now, since it is a version of a Fallout game that I'm already a fan of, I can't truly hate this entry. But without the right mods and tweaks, this game feels incomplete at its best, and absolutely unplayable at its worst. In order to remedy this, in the near future I plan to shape this game with mods, and turn it into what it was truly meant to be in a future video. So make sure to stick around and subscribe to the channel. As for where I put it on my Fallout tier list, without mods, I can't justify putting it any higher than a D. I was considering a low C for a bit, but I know that some of you would absolutely shit a brick if I put it above Fallout 76. So D it is. And that is going to be it for today's video. If you enjoyed this video, consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel, as it helps me out a ton and lets me know if you guys want to see more of these types of videos. If you got to this point in the video, I want to thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Peace.